قالوا, they said. The people, they said to one another, the discussion must have been going on. Who did this? Who could have dared to do such an action? So they said amongst themselves that سَمِعْنَا, we heard, fatan, a young boy. We heard a young boy. And remember the word fata? Who is it applied to? Someone who is in his teens. So we heard a young boy, يَذْكُرُهُمْ, he mentions them, meaning he used to talk about these idols. And remember dhikr, yes, it is to praise, it is to remember, it is to mention, positively as well as negatively. Just as the people of Makkah said, أَهَذَا الَّذِي يَذْكُرُ آلِهَتَكُمْ. So similarly, the people of Ibrahim a.s. said, يَذْكُرُهُمْ. He used to talk about them disapprovingly. That what did he say about the idols? He said to the people, وَتَاللَّهِ لَأَكِيدَنَّ أَصْنَامَكُمْ بَعْدَ أَن تُوَلُّوا مُدْبِرِينَ. And يُقَالُ لَهُ, it is said to him, Ibrahim, Ibrahim, meaning his name is Ibrahim. So what happened? قَالُوا, they said, فَأْتُوا بِهِ, then bring him, عَلَىٰ أَعْيُنِ النَّاسِ, upon the eyes of people. أَعْيُن is the plural of عَيْن. Bring him before the eyes of people so that everyone can see him. Everyone can witness what is done to him. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْهَدُونَ, so that they may bear witness, they may see how Ibrahim is dealt with. How we deal with him, how we punish him, how we execute the punishment. Let everyone see. Let this become an exemplary punishment for every single person, so that no one dares to do such a thing to our idols ever again. And you see, this was the ultimate purpose of Ibrahim a.s. He wanted to convey the message to who? To the entire nation. And when the people said, bring him before everyone, he had the chance to speak to every single person. So now what happened? قالوا, they said, when they brought him before everyone, they said, أَأَنْتَ, did you, فَعَلْتَ, you did, هَذَا, this, did you do this, بِآلِهَتِنَا, with our gods, ya Ibrahim, O Ibrahim? That, O Ibrahim, did you do this to our gods? Did you break them? Did you destroy them? Did you break them into small pieces? قَالَ, he said, Ibrahim a.s. replied, بَل, rather, فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ. The largest of them, he did it. هَذَا, this one. Meaning, the largest of them, this great idol, the biggest idol that you see, he's still standing perfectly fine. He is the one who did it. فَاسْأَلُوهُمْ. So ask them. Ask who? The broken idols. If this big idol does not speak, then ask these broken idols, إِن كَانُوا يَنْطِقُونَ, if they can speak, if they can talk. Now in reality, the biggest idol did not break the rest of the idols. Who broke the idols? Ibrahim a.s. But he says over here, بَلْ فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ هَذَا. Why does he say that? It's not that he is denying that he did anything like that. What he is doing is that he's trying to make the people understand. He's trying to make them use their mind. He's trying to wake their intellect. It is to wake them out of their heedlessness. That think about it. If you know that this idol cannot talk, if you know that this idol cannot move, then how can you say that it deserves worship? So he says, بَلْ فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ هَذَا فَاسْأَلُوهُمْ إِن كَانُوا يَنْطِقُونَ. And if you notice, he says, it's this big idol who did it. Generally what happens? You ask the criminal. If the guilty one does not give you a straight answer, then who do you ask? The victim. So he says, ask this criminal. If he does not speak, then ask the victims, if they can speak. فَرَجَعُوا. So they returned, إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ, to themselves. فَقَالُوا. So they said, إِنَّكُمْ أَنْتُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Indeed, all of you are wrongdoers. What does it mean by this? فَرَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. This has been understood in two ways. That first of all, they returned to themselves, meaning to their aql. They began thinking. They began using their mind. They reflected upon what Ibrahim a.s. had said, and they saw the unreasonableness of worshipping the lifeless idols. So فَرَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. They returned to themselves, to their reason, and they got it. They understood, and they said, "Innakum antumul zalimun." This is so wrong what you've been doing. You worship these idols, the ones that you've made yourself, who cannot even defend themselves, who cannot even save themselves, who cannot even speak. Secondly, فَرَجِعُوا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ has been understood as they returned to one another, to each other. Meaning they began discussing this matter amongst themselves. And they unanimously agreed that إِنَّكُمْ أَنْتُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ, that in worshipping the idols you have been wrong. In setting partners with Allah, in worshipping these lifeless objects, you have certainly been wrong. You are blaming Ibrahim, but you yourself are at fault. So we see that they understood. When Ibrahim a.s. showed to them, they understood. And this was exactly what Ibrahim a.s. wanted. He compelled them to think. He compelled them to use their mind. A person may wonder that was it really right for Ibrahim a.s. to go and break their idols? Because you would think that if it's somebody else's property, we're not allowed to go and abuse it, we're not allowed to go and destroy it, we're not allowed to go even and touch it. So why did Ibrahim a.s. go and break their idols? It was because he wanted them to think. When he would speak to them, what would they say? This is just what our forefathers have been doing. This is our way. This is our practice. We don't do anything else but this. This is our religion. And we do not question. Typically, this is what happens, right? People who are following a particular way of life, a particular religion, when their children question, what do they say? Don't question, don't ask, just do it. This is what we're supposed to do. So Ibrahim a.s. wanted them to use their reason. He wanted them to use their mind. And he had to do something as drastic as this to compel them to think, to make them realize, because otherwise they weren't willing to think about it. They weren't willing to question their faith. So when the idols were laying broken in front of them, and when they realized this cannot talk, this cannot speak, it cannot do anything to itself, they understood that إِنَّكُمْ أَنْتُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. They realized their mistake. But it was only for a little while that they understood their mistake. Very soon, ثُمَّ نُكِسُوا عَلَى رُؤُوسِهِمْ. Then they reversed themselves. Nukisu ala ru'usihim. They reversed upon their heads. Nukisu is from the root letters Nun, Kaf, Sin. And naks is to turn around. What does naks mean? To turn around. From the same root, nuks, with a dhamma on the Nun. Nuks is to be head down and feet up. When a person is standing upside down, with his head down and his feet up in the air. So he is completely turned around. And figuratively, this word is used for when someone has lost his mind, when someone has lost his senses. It is said, nakasa bi ra'sihi, or nakasa ala ra'sihi, that he relapsed into the former state. He regressed. He suffered from a relapse. Like, for example, a person is improving in his health. And then all of a sudden he eats something and he relapsed into the former state. Instead of progressing, he regresses. Progress is to go forward and regress is to go backwards. So, nukisu ala ru'usihim is used in two ways. First of all, it means to lose one's mind. That a person is not using his mind anymore. That a person is not using his reason anymore. He's not thinking straight anymore. Just imagine if your head is down and your feet are up. Are you really using your reason? If a person is trying to walk like that, if a person is trying to sit like that, is he using his reason at all? No, he's not. And secondly, it is also used for to regress, to go backwards, to relapse into the former state. So, ثُمَّ نُكِسُوا عَلَى رُؤُوسِهِمْ. They relapsed. They went back to their former state. What was their former state? Shirk, belief in the divinity of the idols, love for them, supporting them, adoring them, rukuf for them. And secondly, they lost their minds. They understood the unreasonableness of worshipping idols. But then again, they lost their minds. And they said, لَقَدْ certainly. They said to Ibrahim, لَقَدْ عَلِمْتَ. You certainly know that مَا هَؤُلَاءِ يَنْطِقُونَ. These, they do not speak. You know very well that these idols cannot speak. So why are you telling us to ask them? It's certainly you who have broken these idols. But this is exactly what Ibrahim a.s. wanted them to admit. That these idols do not speak. They do not have any power. So قال, he said, أَفَتَعْبُدُونَ, Ibrahim a.s. questioned them, do you then worship min دون الله besides Allah ما لا ينفعكم, what does not benefit you, شيئا, anything at all, ولا يضركم, nor does it harm you? Are you worshipping besides Allah something that cannot benefit you even a little bit and cannot harm you even? Cannot benefit you, meaning cannot bring you anything that you want, any risk, any provision, knowledge, safety, security. Like for example, even at this point, if you wish to investigate who did this to your idols, can these idols tell you? Can they give you any khair? Can they give you any knowledge? No. وَلَا يَضُرُّكُمْ, nor can they harm you. Meaning if you leave these idols broken as they are, can they harm you? If you abandon them, if you don't worship them, can they harm you? No, they cannot. So when you know they cannot speak, then why are you still persistent in their worship? Why are you so persistent in their worship? And he says, أُفِّلْ لَكُمْ. Look at how harsh, in the sense that he becomes so severe in his address towards them. That أُفِّلْ لَكُمْ, uff to you. وَلِمَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ, and to what you worship instead of Allah. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Do then you not reason? That what is wrong with you? Use your mind. Why are you worshipping these idols? Why do you adore them so much? أُفِّلْ لَكُمْ. He says, uff to you. What does uff mean? It's a kalima karaha. It's a word, it's a statement that shows contempt, that shows disgust. That when a person wants to express some disgust of something, that he begins to hate something, he's sick of something, he cannot take it anymore. When he cannot handle it anymore, he gets frustrated. What does he say? Uff. So, uffil lakum. Like, what's wrong with you? Uffil lakum. Don't you get it? What's your problem? So it's as though Ibrahim a.s. is getting frustrated with their behavior, with their not using their mind. That don't you get it? What's wrong with you? Uffil lakum. وَلِمَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. And that which you worship besides Allah. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Do you not use your mind that these idols do not deserve worship? Do you not use your mind and see the evil, the unreasonableness of what you're doing? So he questions them. He shows the reality to them. He makes them use their mind. And then he also becomes a bit strict, a bit firm in his speech. Because sometimes people don't get it. No matter what you tell them, no matter what you show to them. You have to become extremely direct with them. So Ibrahim a.s., he says to them, أُفِّلْ لَكُمْ وَلِمَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Now what was the reaction of the people? What did they have left to say after this? Ibrahim a.s. had so many evidences. He proved to them, they cannot speak, they cannot benefit, they cannot harm. He proved to the people. He had so many evidences. But the people, they had absolutely no evidence to support their false gods. And because they were defeated in terms of evidence, this is why they resorted to irrational behavior. And what was that? Showing anger, threatening Ibrahim a.s., attempting to take his life away. This is the way of who? The defeated. Those who have failed in terms of evidence. Because a person who has evidence, a person who has daleel, what will he do? He will use the daleel. And he will enjoy doing that. If somebody is arguing with you, if somebody is debating with you, and you know how to refute them, what will you enjoy doing? Yelling at them? Slapping them? Or giving them the evidence? Giving them the evidence. So the person who has the evidence, that is what he will use. And a person who does not have any evidence, who doesn't have any explanation, he resorts to showing anger, he resorts to using his hands, he resorts to displaying ghadab. This is what he does. And this is exactly what the people did. قالوا, they said, حرقوه, burn him. Burn him. Burn him to death. Put him to death by setting him on fire, by throwing him in fire. And this is one of the worst ways of killing someone, burning him to death. So they said, حَرِّقُوهُ. And they said, وَانْصُرُوا آلِهَتَكُمْ. Help your gods, support your gods, إِن كُنْتُمْ فَاعِلِينَ, if you're really ones who do. Meaning if you really are going to do anything to support your gods, to support your faith, then go ahead and pick up these gods, go ahead and fix them, help your gods. So they raised the cry of helping their gods. They raised the cry of supporting their faith, of taking retribution for their gods. And they became extremely aggressive in doing so. That burn the one who has done this to our gods. And why did they become aggressive? Because they were defeated in terms of evidence. They had nothing left to say. You see, using aggression, using physical violence is much easier than using evidence. In the sense that when you have to defeat someone by giving them a proof, by talking to them, by discussing matters with them, it becomes challenging. You have to use your mind. You have to expand your knowledge. You have to go and reflect. You have to go and research. And if you just go and slap them, if you go and kick them, that's much easier. If you think about it, if you pass by a donkey even, and if that donkey is upset, if that donkey is angry, it'll kick you. It'll do that. So, using aggression is something very easy. But who uses aggression? The one who does not wish to use his mind. The one who does not use his aql. The one who does not use his brain. This is why, who is the person who is stronger? The one who can control his anger? Or the one who can defeat the other in a physical fight? Who is the one who is stronger? The one who can control his anger. The one who uses his aql. So those who become aggressive are usually those who do not use their reason. Those who do not use their common sense. And this could be at home. This could be at work. This could be at the mall. This could be at the grocery store. This could be in a car accident. When do people become violent? When do people become abusive in their language? When they do not use their mind. When they do not use their reason. And sometimes we see that on the smallest of things, people lose their temper. People become extremely furious and they begin yelling at others who have not done any harm to them. Instead of accepting their fault, instead of thinking, okay, what can we do to solve this problem, they'll become extremely harsh and rude. This is not the way of someone who uses their mind. If you disagree with someone, if you do not understand what they mean, one way is that you become very aggressive towards them. You begin shouting at them. You begin to yell at them. And the other is that you try to understand what they're saying. You try to understand what their problem is. And when you try to understand what their problem is, then you'll be able to deal with them in a better way. And if you start yelling, if you become aggressive, then it will not lead to any solution. And sometimes we see that little children, infants, toddlers, even they are being treated with so much aggression. Like, sometimes the mother cannot figure out why my child is not eating. He refuses to eat, here, a slap across the face. A little child, and the child does not even know why he's being slapped, why he's being hit, why he's being yelled at. The child has no idea. But a mother who is intelligent, what will she do? She will try to figure out what is the reason. Why is he not eating? Why is he behaving this way? So there is a clear difference between a person who becomes aggressive and a person who uses his mind. A person who uses his aql. What differentiates the human being from the rest of the creatures is what? The use of his aql. It's the use of his mind. So the people of Ibrahim a.s., when they were defeated in terms of evidence, when they refused to use their mind, nukisu ala ru'usihim, what happened? They became aggressive. And they said, kill him, burn him. In Surah Al-Ankabut, ayah 24, we learn, فَمَا كَانَ جَوَابَ قَوْمِهِ إِلَّا أَنْ قَالُوا أُقْتُلُوهُ أَوْ حَرِّقُوهُ. And the answer of Ibrahim a.s.'s people was not, but they said, kill him or burn him. That's the only answer that they had. Just kill him or burn him. And thus, it is said that the people of Ibrahim a.s., they gathered a lot of firewood. and they lit a huge fire. As-Suddi said that if a woman was sick, she would make a vow that if she recovered, she would bring wood to burn Ibrahim. Every single person participated in collecting firewood in order to have a huge fire in which to burn Ibrahim a.s. It is said that they made a huge ditch in the ground, a huge ditch, and they filled it up with firewood, and then they set it aflame. And you can imagine what a huge fire it must have been. And so in order to throw Ibrahim a.s. into that fire, they used a catapult. They put him on the catapult and they launched him into the fire. Because imagine going near that fire was also impossible. And it is also said that Ibrahim a.s.'s father also, he participated in collecting the firewood. Now just imagine, on one side, one young boy, Fata, a teenager, a young boy, Ibrahim a.s. He's standing up against his entire nation, telling them what you're doing is wrong. And he has evidence. He proves it to them. But still, people are not willing to accept. Does he give up over there? Does he run away from that scene? Does he say, fine, I won't do it again? Fine, I love your gods, I adore them, I worship them. Did he give up over there? No. Why? Because he was a Siddiq. And remember who a Siddiq is? The one who remains firm upon the truth regardless of what opposition he faces. Regardless of what difficult circumstances he faces. He does not give up. So this huge fire, what happened? They threw him into the fire. We learn in Surah Al-Safat, ayah number 97, قَالُوا بُنُوا لَهُ بُنْيَانًا فَأَلْقُوهُ فِي الْجَحِيمِ. They said, construct for him a furnace and throw him into the burning fire. Notice the word that is used, Jahim. Burning fire. And Jahim is also one of the names of hellfire. So you can imagine how huge and fierce this fire must have been that they had ignited for him. But what happened? They threw him into the fire. قُلْنَا, we said, Ya naru, O fire, kuni, you become bardan, coolness, wasalaman, and peace, ala Ibrahim, for Ibrahim a.s. But look at how the people, they raised the cry to help their gods. And we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is helping His servant. This is who God is. The one who helps His servant. The servant does not need to help his God. The people of Ibrahim a.s., they raised the cry, وَانْصُرُوا آلِهَتَكُمْ. But we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is helping Ibrahim a.s. How? That He said, Ya naru kuni bardan wa salaman ala Ibrahim. What does bard mean? When something is cool. But not cool to the point of being annoying. You know, when something becomes extremely cold, it's not comforting anymore. Isn't it so? Like for example, if you open the refrigerator and if you stand in front of it for like 5 minutes, you won't be comfortable. Similarly, if you go outside in winter, you won't be comfortable. Let's say for instance, these days, when it's nice and cool, you step outside, you like the fresh air, you like the temperature. This is what bard is. When the coolness is actually a source of comfort. When the coolness is actually a source of comfort. So the fire was told, you become coolness for him. And so it did. And it did not burn Ibrahim a.s. The heat went away. The fire remained, the light remained, but the heat, it wasn't there for Ibrahim a.s. And also wasalaman, and safety, security, that he should be able to come out of it free of harm. Ala Ibrahim. So he came out of it safe and unhurt. It is said that the fire only consumed the ropes with which Ibrahim a.s. was tied with. And once those ropes were burnt, the fire became extremely cool for Ibrahim a.s. Isn't it amazing that a person survives a huge fire such as this? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows this to us even now, that there are people who have survived huge fires. They come out perfectly fine. So Ibrahim a.s., he was saved by who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says, وَأَرَادُوا بِهِ كَيْدًا, and they intended for him evil. They intended to harm him. They made a huge plan in order to harm him, in order to burn him. And remember that kaid is also used for such a plan that is done at a large scale, at a huge scale, to harm someone. So over here, the entire nation was involved. Entire nation was involved to kill Ibrahim a.s. أَرَادُوا بِهِ كَيْدًا. But what happened? فَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ. So we made them al-akhsarin, the greatest losers. They became the greatest losers in their purpose. How? That they were defeated and humiliated terribly. What do we see? That they recognized their defeat, they recognized their loss when Ibrahim a.s. proved to them these idols cannot speak. What did they try to do then? They tried to kill Ibrahim a.s. But what happened? They threw him into the fire and he came out of the fire perfectly fine. So what a great loss they suffered from. What great losers they became. What great humiliation they suffered from. That firstly, they were defeated. And secondly, when they tried to kill him even, they weren't successful. In Surah Al-Saffat, ayah number 98, we learn, فَأَرَادُوا بِهِ كَيْدًا فَجَعَلْنَاهُمُ الْأَسْفَلِينَ. Over here we read al-akhsarin, over there we read al-asfalin. Who are asfalin? The lowest ones. The ones who are lowest, meaning the ones who are very humiliated. In Al-Bukhari, it has been narrated that Ibrahim a.s., when he was thrown into the fire, he said, حَسْبُنَ wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is sufficient for us, and what an excellent disposer of affairs He is. We learned that Ibn Abbas radhiyallahu anhu said, this is reported in Al-Bukhari, that Ibrahim a.s. said, قالها إبراهيم عليه السلام حين ألقي في النار. Ibrahim a.s. said this statement when he was thrown into the fire. وقالها محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم حين قالوا إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشوهم فزادهم إيمانا وقالوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. So this statement, Ibrahim a.s. said when he was thrown into the fire, and also Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said when the people said that the people have gathered up against you, so you should fear them. But what happened? It increased them in their iman, and they said that Allah is sufficient for us and an excellent disposer of affairs He is. And when was that? After the Battle of Uhud. And this ayah is Surah Al-Imran, ayah 173. So at this situation, Ibrahim a.s., he relied on who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because he called his people to Allah. He stood firm on the truth for the sake of Allah. He didn't give up for the sake of Allah. And he knew that Allah will help him. Because he was not doing any of this for his own sake. He was doing all that he was doing for whose sake? For the sake of Allah. And the one who does something for the sake of Allah, then Allah will protect him. He will preserve him. He will save him from dangers. So Ibrahim a.s. relied upon Allah. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. And definitely, ni'mal wakeel Allah is that He saved him. He made the fire cool for him. And salam for him. Okay, we'll listen to the recitation and then we'll continue. We see that Ibrahim a.s., the rushd that he was given in a very young age was that he had the power to speak. He had the ability to speak with confidence. He wasn't afraid of people. And this is something that typically very intelligent children, they have this ability. That they ask questions, they comment on everything, they try to investigate about things. They're very curious. And out of their curiosity, they ask questions. Now, one way is that you say that, no, don't ask, don't say anything. This is just how it is. And we get irritated by the questions that they ask. But the other is that you answer their questions. You speak them, you tell them. Remember that if a child is asking questions, this is a sign of his intelligence. This is a sign of his having a sharp mind. Ibrahim a.s. had rushd. And this is why he was asking. So when children ask, give them a proper answer. And we see that he had rushd, and this is why he was able to speak out before people. But we see that when it comes to speaking to people, there must also be wisdom involved. That we see that he doesn't, say right at the beginning, what you're doing is wrong. This is bid'ah. This is shirk. This is kufr. And this is wrong and this is wrong. What does he say? مَا هَذِهِ التَّمَاثِيلُ أَنْتُمْ لَهَا عَاكِفُونَ. Question. Make the other person use their mind. Make the other person accept themselves. Don't impose your belief on them. Don't impose your opinion on them. Question them. So that they can use their mind themselves and reach the conclusion. So this is something very important. One of the best ways of doing da'wah is questioning, asking people that why are you doing this? And what's the objective behind this? What's the reason behind this? How come people do such and such? When you question, then what happens? The other person begins to use his mind as well. Because he has to give you an answer. He has to give you an explanation. And if it doesn't make sense, he will get it himself. And one is that we get help from people. And the other is that we get help from Allah. The help that people give, it's not perfect. It's not complete. But the help that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, that is perfect. Because look at the help that Ibrahim a.s. was given. Ya naru kuni bardan. But not just bard, because if something becomes only bard, then it could be harmful. But also salaman. Also security and safety for Ibrahim. We see that Ibrahim a.s., he remained steadfast on the truth. He did not give up, regardless of how the people were reacting, regardless of the threats that he was facing, and all the people were collecting firewood. We don't see him moving from his position at all, because he knew that Allah was sufficient for him. Hasbunallah. So whenever we're doing da'wah, whenever we're doing something for the sake of Allah, some difficulty comes our way, what should we remember? I'm doing this for Allah, so Allah will take care of me. Why do I have to worry? I really don't need to worry. We see that the way the people reacted to Ibrahim a.s., it was with a lot of haste. That very hastily they said, burn him. They didn't say, okay, let's see what he's trying to say. Because they were defeated. They had nothing left to say. They were made speechless. And typically those who are made speechless, who have pride in them, who are not willing to accept their defeat, then they begin to be very aggressive. And in becoming aggressive, they begin shouting, they begin yelling, they begin to show their anger, and they become physically abusive towards others. And this is all because of hastiness as well as arrogance. We see that Ibrahim a.s. was a young boy at that time, only in his teens. He was a fata at this point. But still he spoke the truth. Many times what do we say? I'm so young, nobody's going to listen to me. Nobody's going to accept what I'm saying. I'm so young, there's so many aunties over here, there's so many older people over here, how can I speak? But the fact is that if you know what the truth is, then you have to tell other people about it. And we must also realize that the truth can also come from someone who is younger than us. That Ibrahim a.s. was young, and was his father on the other side, the entire nation on the other side. But we see that who had the truth? Who was speaking the truth? Someone younger or older in age? Younger in age. Yes, we see that the people of Ibrahim a.s., they understood their mistake. They understood the unreasonableness of shirk. And when they spoke to one another, they said, إِنَّكُمْ أَنْتُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. You have been doing wrong. They realized their mistake, but then very soon, ثُمَّ نُكِسُوا عَلَى رُؤُسِهِمْ. Because sometimes when a person is with those who do not think properly, who do not believe in the right things, then they influence you in the wrong way as well. So the importance of the right company as well.